Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We'll just give it a few minutes for people to jump on and we will start shortly. See, we have people coming in, so we'll just give it another minute or so. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. I think people will keep on joining over the next few minutes, so we can just get started for now and take any further questions or queries as they come. So my name is Pritesh. I'm the host of this webinar. I'm from Nuware. I manage the partner sales team at Nuware. And we are the go-to-market distribution partner for HashiCorp. Along with me today, I have the team from Somerford, which I will introduce shortly. So I have three gentlemen from Somerford, James, John, and Ed, as you see on the screen now. Somerford is our one of our key partners across the region, heavily invested in HashiCorp and other DevOps and DevSecOps technologies, and we work with them across the region. They are going to help us today provide a comprehensive overview of HashiCorp Vault and a lot of use cases that we will cover. We will also dive into key differences between enterprise and open source. So anyone who has exposure to HashiCorp or understand how it works would be very useful session for them. I see the chat is working. Yes, okay, perfect. I hope I'm audible to everybody and you're able to see my video as well. Just to get quickly started on Nuware. So this is what we are about. We are reinventing how the world accesses and uses cloud native technologies. We were founded in the year 2016, and we started off as a cloud native business. At the time, partnered with a couple of vendors only, mainly Docker and HashiCorp. That's where our journey started. And since then, we have grown our ecosystem into a lot of other technologies in the space, and you will see a few of them on the slides to follow. We, in the year 2020, were acquired by a company called Exclusive Network. So we are part of that group now. As a result of that, we now have presence and offices across 5 continents. We carry more than 15 vendors now, and we cater to more than 1,000 enterprise customers worldwide. As a company, we are focused on cloud native as an ecosystem. Obviously, we want to be the one-stop shop for everything related to cloud native, DevOps, DevSecOps, whether it's related to knowledge, training, being a growth partner, or even from the perspective of helping customers and partners skill their own sales as well as their technical sales force to the market to help improve their go-to-market in general. From a cloud native portfolio standpoint, this should give you a high-level overview of how our journey began and where it's at. We started off with the cloud native infrastructure, so mainly container technologies, Kubernetes platforms. So the first couple of technologies that we partnered with back in the day were Docker and Mirantis. Docker had the enterprise version of their solution back then, which was sold as a division to Mirantis, and now it's being taken to the market by Mirantis. So erstwhile both Docker products, but now rebranded as 2 separate offerings, Docker on the desktop side and Mirantis on the infrastructure side. Then we partnered with HashiCorp. As a result, we have a lot of use cases for the products and solutions that they carry. Terraform is one of those products which we take to market for automation, infrastructure as code. We also work with HashiCorp for Consul for service discovery, Nomad for Kubernetes orchestration, and we cover one small use case of feature and flag management with a company called Launch Darkly. So this is our spread as far as cloud native infrastructure is concerned. Now, as and when we took this to market, it was very natural that we also had to look at it from the perspective of from expanding to technology. So in security, in other areas where the ecosystem of cloud and cloud native exists. So then we graduated to security and a lot of technologies that we had a chance to partner with. Again, this whole motion to shift left and taking the whole shift left approach and helping organizations achieve the zero trust security approach. That's where some of the key products that we work with, mainly what today's webinar about is for Vault, which is what came in. And then we also partnered with a lot of other technologies in the space, which helped us achieve other security parameters within the ecosystem. So we partnered with Sysdig and Apiro, Sysdig for cloud native application security platform, CSPM and CWP as they call it, and Apiro for cloud native application security. So they do anything between developer security, code security, ISC security, software supply chain security as well. And then recently we partnered with Salt and Snyk. Salt mainly for APIs, and Snyk for developer security as a product. Again, I think most of you, if you have been in the DevOps space, then you may be familiar with these technologies if you have considered any security solution in the past. Coming to the last bit, which is resilience. So here we partnered with 2 main vendors. One with Grafana Enterprise, again very popular in the open source space. They do observability and monitoring for Kubernetes environments. And then we recently partnered with PagerDuty as well. And PagerDuty does digital operations management and response management, essentially helping a company to reduce their time to respond and their time to act as far as incidents and digital operations are concerned. So on a high level, this is the portfolio that we started off with and we have graduated into. I will touch briefly upon our capabilities for training. So we do a lot of workshops for for vendors and also conceptually. So we are also a certified training provider for Kubernetes. And we offer this training in partnership with Kubernetes on almost on a quarterly basis, based on reservation. But for the rest of the portfolio, we do product trainings. We also do official vendor trainings to enable sales and technical resources, even with hands-on labs to practice and to get a feel of how these technologies work and function. And last but not the least, this is a spread of our partial customer list worldwide. As you see, many names across different industries, whether it's commerce or banking, finance, fintech, across different regions. And just to summarize what Nuware stands for from a presence, from a overall go-to-market standpoint, this is our spread as far as customers and the portfolio is concerned. So with that, I would like to hand over to my partner James, who will now start sharing his slides and continue with the presentation for what we are here, which is essentially for HashiCorp Vault. So over to you, James.
Hey, thank you very much, Pradesh. Really appreciate that. And hello and welcome, everyone. I'm just going to have a quick run through of the agenda on screen today. We'll have a little bit of an introduction and a bit of an overview about Somerford Associates before we dive really into the meat of the discussion today. And that's all around HashiCorp Vault and really understanding the differences between the open source version, the enterprise versions, the capabilities and use cases, but also how we can help you move forward with that adoption, so you really get the maximum return on investment from your HashiCorp Vault investments. There will also be a Q&A at the end, so please pop any questions into the Q&A box at the bottom, just on your screen, and we'll get through as many of those questions as possible. If there's any other questions we don't get through, again, we'll take records of that, and then we'll come back to you to follow up as well. If we can just move through to the next slide, please. So firstly, love to meet everyone. My name is James Astley. I'm the Solutions Director at Somerford Associates. I sit on the main board for Somerford and have been at the organisation for coming up for 10 years now. In terms of Somerford, and the Vault side of life, we'll go into our wider portfolio very quickly, but we're a hyper-specialised focus partner. That means that we can do end-to-end implementation, support, enablement on HashiCorp, and we also have the ability to resell license as well. Very importantly, we are headquartered out of the UK, but we do also have registered offices presence in the UAE, and I'm also based here myself. So I'm coming live from the marina, and I'm always available to meet people for a coffee, to chat about your investments, your requirements, and understand how we can support you in conjunction with Nuware. Thank you very much. On to the next slide, lovely. So just very quickly, we have the portfolio on our screen there from Somerford Associates. Again, it's not a very broad portfolio, because the reason being, everything we have on the screen there, we have deep end-to-end capability. And I will touch on that in a bit more in a second. But really, to understand, we hold the highest levels of certification. We can not only manage your license, resell them, manage that investment, but we also have the support, the end-to-end capability to help you implement those technologies. So we really do understand everything that's on the screen there. So today is very much focused on HashiCorp, but if there's anything else you see there on the screen that you want to learn more about and have a deeper understanding about, please feel free to reach out to us after this, and we can definitely set up a follow-on discussion. Move to the next slide. So just a bit of background about Somerford. I've been at the business for 10 years, but as an organisation, we've been operating for over 20. We really operate across all verticals, be it across government or federal, and to financial services, retail, digital, and utilities. Really is a very broad manufacturing as well, a very broad spectrum in terms of who we work with, but primarily we work with very large and complex programs of work, and helping to solve a very diverse or very usually quite complex set of requirements. So on the screen there, you can see some of the organizations we work with and the types of areas we focus upon. Very quickly, if we move through to the next slide, sort of why Somerford question, just so you understand a bit more about who we are. On the screen is just a list of some of our capabilities. And I will drill down into a couple of those very quickly in a second. But really, this just shows how we operate end to end. We can do everything from helping you to scope, define what a particular requirement might be. We align and listen to what your business requirements are. And then we can really build out the architecture. We can design playbooks and frameworks around that. And we also operate a dedicated in-house support desk. On implementation, anything that we implement, we also go hand in hand with a dedicated project management team. And you'll hear a little bit later on from the one of our lead project managers, Ed, who's on the call today. He would just be giving a bit of an overview in relation to one of our HashiCorp specific services that we provide. If we just go through to the next slide, and this is just going to build out slowly, just the final introduction to who Somerford are. As a business, we primarily used to operate very much in the large enterprise, a lot of moved towards the sort of the legacy world. So, traditional data center, where a lot of security and challenges were very different to the modern security challenges and transformation challenges that we're seeing today. And with that, we've really moved ourselves in a position where we can support organizations not only who still have very deep legacy requirements, and that world is very, very vibrant, but also organizations looking to either move into the cloud adoption or at the very start of that journey, or actually who may be a bit further along and actually looking at what's in those gaps are. And on the screen now, you can sort of see each of the steps that we move through as just a typical methodology that we'd operate with. So really trying to understand from the start, you as an organization, trying to understand what your requirements are, what those key business drivers are. We then move into a typical discovery phase where we'd help you scope everything. We'd do detailed assessments, again, all part of our capability that we work with you upon. If we need to, running pilots and proof of values to really make sure we've got the absolute best fit of technology for your key requirement. And then moving into more of a project design and planning phase where often there, not only do we focus on the architecture and the use case, but we'll also work with you to really identify what is the return on the investment? What is the total cost of ownership here? And around that, what are the opportunities to integrate? Where can we have interoperability? Where are there opportunities for us to maximize investments? And also look at potential tool consolidation. The implementation side, that really is our bread and butter. That's where we've delivered huge, large-scale programs of work, either in conjunction with other partners. We've done that very effectively, or as a standalone organization where we've taken the full lead. And the key bit to Somerford is no matter what we do, we always have a post-sale support function. And that often comes with analyzed health checks. You have an assigned account manager, and we also move forward and enable you to make sure that whatever has been implemented, we can support it and manage it moving forward. And that's just a bit of an overview of Somerford. As I said, very happy to go into more detail. I live in Dubai myself, so very happy to meet anyone and go into a bit more detail about what those deliverables might look like at the bottom there as just some of the outputs you might receive. And I'd like to now pass across to my colleague, John, or JJ, as we know him at the business. He's now going to take you through the HashiCorp Vault stack in a bit more detail.
Thanks, James. Share my video there. There we go. Great. Okay, yeah, as James says, hi everyone. John Jarvis, JJ for short. I'm a technical consultant at Somerford. I've been here for a little over 3 years. I'm a certified Splunk architect, but mainly work with what we call the Hashi stack. Certified implementation professional in both Terraform and Vault. We're here today, of course, to talk about the latter. So James has talked a bit about Somerford's various partners. Obviously, today we're focusing on HashiCorp. In a phrase, HashiCorp is about enabling cloud automation, really, and famously, in many circles, cloud infrastructure automation with the likes of Terraform and Vagrant before it. But there's also automating the applications that run on top of all this. HashiCorp's recommended model, largely what organizations and individuals mean when they're talking about DevOps and DevSecOps, is called the cloud operating model. I'll be talking about that quite a bit this morning. So much of what HashiCorp and Somerford, as their hyper-specialized focus partner, talk about with clients and prospective clients, it's more of a journey, a transformation that will be unique to that client, as will the end goal. And it's important to keep in mind that even in the case of a perfect fit, shall we say, the cloud operating model, it really remains an ideal, something that, with huge value to work towards, but it also needs to be balanced against an organization's many priorities. It's about enabling that automation that brings efficiency without compromising an organization's security posture. And that security posture, of course, is the focus of the talk today. All right, just for those who aren't familiar with the Hashi stack, Pritesh talked about a few of these as well. Just go through the main ones quickly, shall we say. So yes, HashiCorp is all about cloud computing and specifically helping organizations take advantage of it easily. And they don't presuppose what that looks like, much like James was just talking about a moment ago. It can be full bore multi-cloud services, all the way to a few early cloud services that an organization wants to seamlessly operate alongside a lot of legacy on-prem stuff. HashiCorp's tooling, as I've seen here, and as I say, affectionately known as the Hashi stack, can help organizations all across that spectrum. It's also worth noting at the outset that all 4 of these products have open source editions as well as more fully featured, officially supported enterprise editions. And I'll be focusing on Vault, obviously, and tell you a bit about the differences there. But let's do this overview first. So Terraform up in the top left there, infrastructure as code. This is about the new speed of business, yes, but it's also about all the good things that come with code, that consistency, minimizing the risk of humans botching things, and making sure far and wide in your organization, things are done the same and well every time. Auditor's dream, you could say. Second, Vault, secrets management. Again, it's about consistency, and where there used to be a sprawl of secrets and a hodgepodge of secrets management tooling, now there's a centralized, resilient store with the flexibility to cover pretty much every use case, as well as improving on them. For example, in the case of dynamic secrets, which I'll get onto a little bit shortly, where even in the worst case scenario, data breach, those secrets are only of limited and then diminishing utility. Third, Consul. This is about underpinning all those workloads and applications in a dynamic fashion, that service discovery Pritesh was talking about. For example, the cloud infrastructure that you've codified and built with Terraform changes at pace, and that means your networking needs to keep up too. So think of it as support tickets for updating firewall rules are out, and automated service discovery is in. Finally, Nomad, an orchestrator like Kubernetes, but focused on simplicity in contrast to the former's complexity. Nomad's happy to work across on-prem and cloud-based workloads too, which comes back to those organizations that might just be dipping their toes in cloud, as it were. Nomad's surprisingly flexible as well. It's able to perform at the extreme of edge computing on even a hobby scale kit with very limited network connectivity. But again, today is about Vault. When we're talking about Vault and any HashiCorp product, it's all about the cloud operating model, as I've said. And regardless of where an organization is at any moment in time, again, the dipping their toes in or full multi-cloud services, secrets management is required. It's an absolute must. Now, what did that used to mean? Well, I'm quite old. I remember the time of data centers and whatnot. Walls, what's often affectionately called castle and moat. But yes, let's go through a scenario. Let's say you might have something like application A, for example, and it needs to, it's running on a server in a private data center. It needs to talk to a database in another part of the data center. It's all within a hardened perimeter. We don't need to worry about trusting application A or the people writing it or maintaining it. So we'll hard code the username app A and the password secret A right in the code running on the server, and all will be well. Obviously a bit of a simplification, but largely that's the way things went. Okay, so now let's jump ahead to more modern times, let's say. This organization wants to start using the cloud operating model with applications that might be running all over the place, including in the cloud. Maybe they're moving to a microservice architecture as well. And they need to have many copies of let's call it a banking application A, to meet the lunch hour rush of people signing on with their phones, for example. Similarly, there are multiple databases to handle that load. It's a trickier problem in general, of course. How do all these applications and databases find one another, for example? But bringing it back to this secrets management, how do they communicate securely? What happens if the app A code is leaked, or one of its developers has their laptop stolen? Now we have a big problem. All that code, or certainly the secrets hard-coded therein, need to be changed, and preferably, apologies, in a way that minimizes downtime for that banking application. Okay, so this is where Vault comes in, basically. Released in 2015, we are now recently seen version 1.13 drop. So there's been a lot of development over the years. In that previous scenario I was just outlining, Vault reduces the risk by generating dynamic secrets. I mentioned that before. So what do I mean by that? Well, 2 points to really pull out here. One, secrets are generated on demand. They aren't sitting in code or in flat files or in sticky notes waiting to be compromised. Applications request them as needed by hitting a Vault API endpoint, the access to which is controlled by Vault policy. And two, secrets are ephemeral. That is, they have a limited time to live by default, after which they automatically expire without any manual intervention. So for example, those credentials I talked about on that laptop probably won't work by the time whoever picked it up and tries to use them. Okay, so let's just ground this a little more in a few case studies. Vodafone's analytics and data engineering team manage a large cloud estate that serves many internal customers on Google Cloud for all their analytical machine learning, AI, and business intelligence use cases. Their team uses HashiCorp Vault to manage secrets in Google Cloud. They decided to use Vault to implement their own high-volume, low-latency encryption service for PII, for personally identifiable information. As one of the world's leading telcos, Vodafone ingests data from more than 300 million mobile customers and Internet of Things or IoT devices. To quote one of their engineering leads, look at what you can do if you're a HashiCorp Vault customer, Vault Enterprise customer in particular. Look how easy it is to write a plugin for your own requirements and to process as fast as you can afford. And in their case, it's quite a lot. They're getting 10 million encryptions a second, which is a staggering 36 billion in an hour. But the key point here is to unlock all that, effective adoption of Vault Enterprise is key. So what do we mean by effective adoption? Well, let's switch gears slightly to fintech. 80% of the top global financial companies are HashiCorp customers. And in the financial sector in particular, HashiCorp typically sees the time from ideation to the delivery of production grade service to clients as somewhere between 4 to 6 months. Again, effective adoption is crucial in competing in a market like that. Delays or worse, mistakes can mean the difference between riding and missing those waves. For example, in the case of the 2019 attack on Capital One, where even though data was encrypted on disk and in transit, compromised credentials meant the attacker could access everything in clear text. It's easy to go from leader to lesson in this sector in particular, one could argue. So what would effective adoption of Vault have meant in this case? So we said that compromised credentials were a big factor in the success of this attack. Well, here, smack in the middle of this slide, you see a variation on those hard-coded credentials that I talked about earlier, app A and secret A. This time, it's actually an EC2 instance that has persistent access to a privileged IAM role. With Vault, that isn't necessary nor desired. The default is no access, or default deny it, as you might hear. Those credentials can be available to applications instantly, on demand, as I discussed previously, provided, and this is the crucial bit, provided that they can authenticate themselves to Vault, which this attacker would not have been able to do. So, bang. That's the access to the metadata service denied. But let's say the attacker managed to get access to the S3 bucket at the bottom right there through other means. With Vault's encryption as a service, for example, those records would be encrypted at rest, safely out of the attacker's reach. And even in the much more difficult scenario of the attacker somehow gaining access to a Vault token privileged enough to send decryption requests, it's literally one command that rotates the associated key to a new version while simultaneously invalidating the old one. So Vault would immediately stop servicing any request to decrypt the data using the old key, which you can imagine would be useful even in scenarios where the security team only suspects that maybe a key has been compromised. The point is, the organization has options, and options close to hand that work quickly. The extended duration and ineffectiveness of Capital One's response to this attack was another big lesson learned by FinTech on that day. Which brings us on to, well, what does it mean to run Vault well? Well, if you adopt it effectively, that is, a proof of concept use case is a hit, and you have teams queued up to try it out, or clients clamoring for services that Vault underpins, like we've just discussed, you'll find yourself in a pattern that we at Somerford have seen many times. And that is, Vault will end up in the business critical path where any unplanned outages whatsoever mean big losses, and Vault's performance may also start to suffer trying to service those larger user bases. So what do? Well, it's time for Vault Enterprise. So you may be saying, well, why is that? Well, simply put, we've talked about leaders and lessons, and nowhere is that distinction more obvious than around business continuity planning. Things will go wrong, and it's about what you've planned for. What have you got in place? Say you've got the open source offering of Vault. Even in the absolutely best case scenario, where you have multiple Vault open source OSS clusters, you can't replicate the data across them at scale. Are you taking manual snapshots? Because automated snapshots or backups are only available with Vault Enterprise. And then are you manually restoring those snapshots on your standby cluster or clusters? They will be well out of date when disaster strikes. Are you willing to lose hours of data from your client-facing services? The solution is obvious. You need disaster recovery. You need Vault Enterprise. We've seen use cases where clients have got that switch to their secondary Vault Enterprise cluster down to sub 1 minute times. But it'll always be a matter of minutes and single-digit minutes at that. And that's to a Vault that's completely up to date and ready to go. It doesn't even need to be limited to a disaster, as it were. We've got clients who use it as the means of upgrading their Vault binary, for example, on clusters, switching it over once done. With automated snapshots, you also have other options for recovering from mistakes without needing to worry about people kicking off manual backups on a regular basis, for example. And there's the performance aspect. You may say, oh, well, Vault OSS is a star. Performance couldn't be better. To which I would say, do you plan on expanding your business? Because there is a hard limit to how far Vault OSS can scale. Even with high availability, all requests hit the active node in a Vault cluster. Any requests to a standby node get passed to the active node straight away. So at some point, all those happy clients you service will simply be too much for the active node. It will go down. But we have standbys, many standbys, you say. Well, as soon as one of them becomes the active node, now it faces the exact same level of traffic. And you guessed it, it goes down, and so on. You need performance standby nodes at a minimum to at least handle the many Vault read requests that typically come across. And this can be spread across many active nodes. And maybe you need performance replication to do the same for Vault write requests. Both of these are only available with Vault Enterprise. Again, it's all about that organizational complexity on delivering services that your clients can rely on, that you can sign up to provide, with confidence, even to 5.9 levels of reliability. I could go on, but I think you get the picture. And it is complex, which is why Somerford offers what we call the Vault Acceleration Program to help you navigate this complexity to a solution that's right for you. And with that, I'll hand things over to one of our project managers, Ed Andrew, to tell you a bit more about what we call that.
Hi, thanks, JJ. Yes, hello, everyone. My name's Ed Andrew. I'm a project manager here at Somerford Associates. So the next few slides are just around our Vault Acceleration Program, or VAP for short. Simply put, the VAP program is designed to provide you expert guidance and produce a roadmap on how you can expand your usage of Vault. And as the comment here suggests, accelerate your adoption to get the most out of the service. Next slide, please, JJ. Thank you. So who's the VAP service for? The VAP program is aimed at customers who are in one of the following situations. So existing Vault enterprise customers who are perhaps struggling to get the most out of the service. We often find this can be down to a lack of knowledge on how to develop their Vault infrastructure, or simply don't have the time and the resources to create an appropriate plan on how to expand their Vault. And listed below here are a few of the work streams that we would typically look at in this scenario. So operations and monitoring, the reliability of your Vault, performance and DR strategies you have in place, or a need to look at improving additional use cases for Vault. The second typical scenario for a VAP customer are those who are using open source and are considering moving to enterprise. Typically, these are customers whose Vault needs have become more complex, and the benefits that enterprise can offer will often help to align them with their strategic aims and goals. So what does a VAP program look like? The program's broken down into 3 phases, and depending on the number of Vault users within your company, it can take anywhere from around 1 to 4 weeks to complete that whole program. Stage 1's the kickoff, where we look to identify the key stakeholders and get a good idea of the high-level goals that the customer is looking to achieve. So is reliability the key driver here, or perhaps training to improve that resource within your business? The second stage is really the meat of the program. So our consultants will run a series of interviews and workshops with the relevant stakeholders. And that really helps us perform a deep dive into your usage of Vault, how it's set up, what the limitations and risks are, and really what you're looking to get out of your Vault service. Off the back of the discovery stage, our consultants put together a number of reports relating to the specific ways that you can improve your Vault environment. So these reports help to highlight the current state of your Vault setup, where we've identified potential risks or issues, and what steps you can take in order to mitigate and improve these. And then the final stage is the feedback. So once the reports have been produced, we'll feed these back to the customers with our suggestions to the relevant stakeholders. So these next couple of slides will just look at the deliverables of the VAP. So firstly, the health check. So as I mentioned, as part of the discovery phase, our consultants run a series of interviews and workshops, and we have a structured questionnaire that's used to provide our consultants with the information in which to build these reports. But we'll also share this with the customer, as it can really help to just give you a good overview really of your current Vault environment. We also produce reliability and training plans. So our reliability plan is designed to provide recommendations on how you can improve the resilience of Vault for scalability and high availability. And the training plan will help to provide a roadmap suggesting training sessions to improve the knowledge and the resource of your organization. Our adoption plan will look at how you are currently using Vault and how you can expand the capabilities to get the most out of it. And then finally, the operations plan, it ties all the proposed plans together and links them to the customer's overall organizational strategy and help to prioritize the work streams for the different areas. And then finally, statement of work. So as a follow-on from the VAT, we can provide a statement of work for the suggestions we've made in the various reports. So again, this could be around bespoke training that we can offer, or to help with a particular piece of implementation work. Again, if the knowledge or the resource just isn't available to complete within your organization. The next few slides are just some links to the Somerford website for some more details. So I'll hand back to James just before we open the floor up to questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ed. As you can see on the screen now, just some links there. And again, this presentation deck will be shared with everyone who registered for the webinar today and attended. So you can go through this in a bit more detail, but there are links directly to the Vault Acceleration Program. Also, some of our rapid adoption packs. So for organizations that have decided that one of the many parts of the Hashi stack is in the right program and the right technology, we can help with assisting that rapid adoption and getting you operational and up running. But also some links to some of our blogs. We've got quite a wide customer base for HashiCorp. We've seen lots of different scenarios, lots of different use cases. And with that, that brings a wealth of knowledge that we want to share. And I think very much, although HashiCorp is an enterprise technology, it's still very heavily focused on the open source community in terms of collaboration. We want to share, we want to make sure that everyone can leverage this technology and achieve these use cases that JJ has gone through in some detail today. So if you want more information, please do contact us. And we're now going to jump into some questions. I think there's been a few questions that have come through that presentation, just to answer some of those. And again, on the screen, if you have any other questions that you want to send across to either myself or Pritesh after this, both our email addresses are on the screen now. So please do take a copy of that and feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to meet you and sit down with you and understand how we can deliver on some of those really critical business objectives. Pritesh, any questions? I think a couple have come through.
Yes, I was just going to say, so there was one question which says, if I only use open source Vault, can I still take advantage of the VAP service?
Yes, that's a really good question. Ed, do you want to start off by taking that one?
Yeah, so absolutely you can indeed. The main purpose of the VAP service is for customers new to enterprise or those who are using open source. It's really designed to help you get the most out of your Vault service. So yes, if you're using open source, we can come in and help build that roadmap on how you can get the most out of it. And if moving on to enterprise is the best course of action, then that's something we would look at with you.
Yeah, so really good points there. So just to add, if you're already using the enterprise edition, we can absolutely help you scale that adoption and understand how you get more value from the enterprise edition. If you're on the open source edition and understanding what those business benefits are, you want to run through proof of value and pilots and see how the VAT program can tie into that. It can all be part of the same piece of work. So absolutely.
There was one question from Muhammad. He says, is there a way to configure auto backup on open source? Or you need to use enterprise for that?
Good question, JJ.
Yeah, yeah, as I hinted at in the presentation, that's right. Automated snapshots is a Vault enterprise feature. There are ways, obviously, that you can kick off that backup process, that snapshot process in open source, but it's something that you need to manage yourself. And we find that our clients it's that extra bit of security, knowing that this stuff is happening regularly without any other intervention. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
One more question. I think John mentioned this. So John talked about the complexities around using Vault and about small windows of opportunity, say fintech companies. So how do you define, on a high level, the benefits of moving to Vault Enterprise for such small windows of opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I simplified a lot there when it comes to the scenarios. Like, for example, in the case of Capital One and what they could have done, and there's a lot of speculation there. But I think one thing that I've definitely taken away from that is yes, securing operations at that scale is always going to be complex, but it's the centralized management that comes with Vault that's a big bonus to it, and the resiliency of that centralized platform when you're talking about the features with Vault Enterprise, that disaster recovery in particular. It's not limited to that, though. I mean, I did gloss over a lot of it. One thing that you definitely want to do is you want to take advantage of what that centralized management gives you. You have that data there, and it's a very rich source of data. So you need to be able to plug that into your security framework properly, right? You need to have the observability tooling and to actually see, these particular Vault policies are being called upon on a regular basis. They're actually quite privileged. What's going on there? Let's talk to the users. Who's using Vault the most? Are they using it to best advantage? That kind of thing. And then obviously the scenarios of, something's clearly gone wrong, let's respond to it. But it's also about that the proactive nature of what that centralized management can give you, that heads up, basically, that time to not be in crisis mode, as it were.
I was going to say, we've seen many in the use case, haven't we, JJ, over the years, where sort of that hindsight moment of I wish I'd had that availability and didn't have to go through that process.
Or it was sitting there, but we didn't didn't look at
exactly.
those logs at the right time, or whatever the case may be.
No, it's really really good questions. Just checking if there's any more that's come through there.
Yeah, a couple then. What is the best option to set up high availability cross-site cluster with Vault?
So it's very much a case of looking at your main use cases for Vault, because the architecture and the tuning of that architecture in particular is always going to be quite unique. Vault looks very different, for example, if you're looking at an encryption as a service kind of use case versus, say, application pipelines that are developed, are requesting a lot of credentials. So it's a difficult question to answer overall, but for all those use cases. But in general, HashiCorp has some reference architectures. There used to be, back in the day, that a console-backed cluster was considered the standard, but now they have a reference architecture that's kind of overtaken that with integrated storage. So your Vault is storing the data on the same servers that are running the service. So so broadly, what you would look at is the reference architecture, and then from there kind of determine your requirements. Like for example, the typical reference architecture has 3 availability zones, so that you can survive problems with the cloud service. And if you have that, and then you have a secondary cluster, and set up in DR, disaster recovery mode, then you're looking pretty good for most of the worst case scenarios that we see. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks,
There
JJ.
is one more about the cost of VAP, and also whether you cover Terraform as part of your services portfolio.
Yeah, so the initial discovery and consultancy is provided free of charge by Somerford. So by that we mean the interviews and the workshops with your stakeholders, looking into how your Vault is set up, and the reports that we produce are free of charge. There'd be an additional charge if you choose to have Somerford support work that we identify off the back of the VAPs, but that initial VAP process is free of charge. And then yes, we do run essentially exactly the same program for Terraform, so our Terraform acceleration program. And again, the layout of that program is exactly the same. It's a series of workshops and interviews, which will then go away and produce some reports for you on how we think you can look to improve your usage going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to sort of add on to that one, we're very blessed that we are here in region and have the ability to really sit down and dig into these use cases in more detail. And I know Pritesh, myself, we really enjoy going out, meeting people and sitting down with people. I know perhaps coming to the end or coming into Eid would be maybe an opportune moment to maybe start meeting and start discussing these again, and actually look at how we can leverage some of this capability, because there's a huge source of capability and knowledge that you can actually get a lot of for free, and that is really core to what Somerford do. If we can deliver value and we can show you how to get more adoption or at least a scaled roadmap of how you can do that, that really is the starting point for us. And then we can start looking at how we build on top of that to really accelerate your usage and deliver for your business requirements and your customers.
There is one more question from Mohammed. Would you please recommend training courses for beginners to operate Vault clusters?
For Pritesh, can you say that again? Was that, do we have training?
Yeah, any training courses for beginners,
Right.
either offered by you or publicly available.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it's maybe you're aware, there's the publicly there's the Vault Associate, I'll get it out in a minute, Vault Associate exam, which the idea is to give you a good overview of all of Vault's very much a Swiss Army knife, so it's a good way to get an overview of everything that it does, because it is quite a lot to try and take in other formats, but that's self-study. And similarly, they've got a pro certification that's more about for people who are using it daily. Somerford, we have, as Ed talked about those training plans, we've got this enablement service where we kind of approach it from the standpoint of your use cases first, or where you want to go with the acceleration program, and very much cut it down to what you need to know to make the most of that. And that, as I say, that is a tailored service, so that is available as well. I am sure there's other courses out there as well, I'm sure, on all of those sorts of subscription services. I'm trying to think of the one, but now if you won't be in Vault space very long before you know the name Ned Bellevance, Ned in the Cloud, and he's got courses as well, which I can say from personal experience were quite useful as well. Hope that answers your question.
What I would say as well, again, very happy to provide more guidance on that, be it HashiCorp direct specific courses that are vendor-led training. There's lots of open source material that you can read, or then we can interweave that with the enterprise edition training and enablement that we provide, and we can make those recommendations. But it does come down to, again, what are your use cases? What are you trying to achieve? Where do you want to get to? And then we can make sure we tailor the right enablement and training for you.
Okay, I think that's almost everything from the chat. Unless we have something else to cover off, I think we are almost with time, so we can end the session, and we'll share the recording and the presentation with everybody who attended and registered.
That sounds brilliant. And again, thank you very much for everyone attending. It's great to see some new faces, and I'm really looking forward to continuing exciting new partnership with Nuware across the whole region. And as I said, I really look forward to meeting you as well, and seeing what we can achieve together. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hopefully meeting more of you in the future.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.